You're listening to Ember Weekend, your weekend recap of all things Ember. This is episode 47. I'm Chase McCarthy.
And I'm Jonathan Jackson, and we're here to keep you in the Ember Run Loop. We're broadcasting from Hash Rocket HQ, and today's episode is called Hardcore Parkour. It's an Office reference. So this past week, Martin Fecky from ThoughtWorks put out a blog post called Ember Data for the Curious, and in it he covers a bunch of really cool Ember Data things, maybe some reasons to use JSON API, like why that's a good decision, and then he goes through some of the anatomy of kind of what happens when you do a find record. And I really enjoyed this blog post for a number of reasons. It was clear, gave a really good idea of kind of, why and when it might be, useful if you're working with Ember data. And then he goes into the details of the find record, and he actually has a cool graph that kind of helps simplify some of the ideas, some like the ordering and what is responsible for what, specifically around adapters and serializers, which I think is a common source of confusion for people coming to Ember data, especially from other places where there might be similar terms like AMS or something like that. You might use a serializer and adapter in a different way. So this is a really cool thing. I really enjoyed reading this.
Yeah, it was nice. I think that it kind of helps solidify some, just a mental picture that I had. We've been messing around with it enough now that I think we have a grasp, but sometimes it's nice to just get it all laid out.
Yeah, I really like seeing graphs in a blog post like this. Like I said, maybe a few weeks ago, I really enjoy seeing kind of a big overview, and a lot of times a graph is necessary for me to kind of put all the pieces in my head in the right order, in the right place. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that's pretty. I've been seeing more and more graphs around Ember data, and I think this is a pretty good one. So I will likely be using this at some point in some presentation that I give on Ember data, the graph. So yeah, really great blog post, definitely worth a read. And if you get a second, you should sneak away and check it out.
Also last week, Blint already had a blog post, a really short, just example of how to kind of fake out Tori's resolver for the application adapter. And he did this mostly because I guess it's an aesthetic thing. The fact that in order for Tori to work this way, he would have to have named his Google OAuth adapter application.js, and that's not a very descriptive name. So this is just an example of how to make the file name the right thing, and then just import it into the place that the resolver is currently looking for it. So it's a really quick snippet, kind of like a TIL.
Yeah, I really like those quick snippets. We obviously, our blog post is a 500 word limit, so we're kind of both on board with that style. And I'm seeing more and more where there's these quick insights into, especially Ember has a lot of like interesting, like, oh, that's cool, I didn't know I could do that. In this particular case, he's basically he even said that it took him a long time to kind of come up with a solution, but the solution ended up being just a little bit of knowledge of the resolver and how it actually works was enough to, rename one file and it's just going to work, or export the right thing from a specific file. And I think that's the kind of thing I like to see in these like smaller blog posts that aren't really long form. They're not really necessarily telling you a whole story. They're telling you like, oh, hey, check this particular thing out. So I really enjoy that format, and which is why we're covering it. And I think we have one other that is kind of similar. I really like that format, and also in this particular case, it's kind of showcasing this knowledge, this understanding of the resolver, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a nice insight, definitely worth your time to check out. And obviously tune into Blint Erdy stuff like all the time because rock and roll Ember.js and stuff. So definitely really cool. You might have heard us talk about Ember concurrency a few times now. I think we've mentioned it maybe on a few episodes, one or two, maybe more. We definitely mentioned it at one of the global Ember meetups. But Ember concurrency is kind of a way to get a cleaner way to write async code with cancelable behavior. So promises right now, and Chase, you can talk a little bit more about this in a second. Promises right now really don't allow you to cancel things, and that causes a lot of problems for certain things. It's not outlined in the A+ spec, I believe. So this is kind of an endeavor to find a nice, clean way to write a lot of asynchronous code. And Alex Machnier just released a new website called Ember-concurrency.com, and it has kind of an intro. It's an Ember app, and it has an intro to a couple of examples of how of it working live on that site, and then kind of an outline of why you might want to use it, and then also some links to the actual repository. So I thought it was really cool. It definitely looks pretty snazzy.
Yeah, they got a bunch of really cool like word effects that I'm gonna pull in. I think we need to have like a Ember Weekend marquee across the page.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Ember marquee. Yeah, we can call it Ember marquee.
I'm sure that's already taken.
Probably. There's 2,000 add-ons now in the add-on.
Yeah, I saw that. That was cool. So yeah, this library is really cool. It also uses the generator syntax, which you might not have seen. So that's where it has a function star, and then internally it's yielding. So internally, there's reasons why he chose to do it this way. So check out the site if you're interested in that. But yeah, this basically solves the cancelable thing, which is needed if you're trying to do this in say a component, and the component's going to be showing for a little bit and then go away, and you don't want those like callbacks to be trying to update state for something that's not even seen anymore. So there's some things that like under the hood this does for you that makes async code just much easier.
Yeah, and we came up with just a few places you might want to consider using this: animations, games, live time ago in words. We add that in a demo app for an Ember.js meetup, where we wanted just anytime you would post something periodically, we wanted the updated app to re-trigger as long as the thing was on the page. So every minute or so it would update and say, oh, it's 60 seconds ago, oh, it's 2 minutes ago, oh, it's an hour ago, etc. So yeah, that's just a few use cases for it, but obviously there's like practically limitless opportunities to use it. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. And you just ran into a problem with the not being able to cancel a promise in another project, right?
Yeah, we were doing a React Native app, and it basically, we're using the fetch API, which it returns a promise, which is great and all. And I was like, okay, I know how to use promises from my Ember experience. This is gonna be great. And then it turned out we had, it's an iOS app, and you could click a different tab while the other one's still loading. And we have to cancel that, and it's not easy to do. It's not something built into the fetch API. It's not something built into promises, and there's like this debate as to whether it should be built in and what would that look like. And on the surface, it's simple. You're like, well, what I want to be able to do is just call cancel on the promise that I get back. But the problem becomes, what do I do if somebody tries to attach now to that promise after the fact? If they attach a then or catch, what gets called? Do you have to add a new cancel hook? Finally, most likely should get called, but do you resolve it? Do you catch it? Does it count as an error? Or do you have to have a new thing called a canceled or something? So there's just a bunch of weird things that have to happen in order for this to be supported. So there are libraries out there like Bluebird that are trying to get this working and do it in a way that's like experiment and see which way works best pragmatically. But we'll see whether that makes it into the spec.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really interested. I was doing a little try pairing and kind of watching over your shoulder on Friday. Looked really interesting, but definitely not an easy problem to solve. So it's really cool to see something in the Ember space come up to try to help with this kind of issue.
Yeah.
February the 27th, there's going to be another global Ember meetup, which we're going to participate in, and I'm really excited about this. It's episode 3 of season 2. I like how we're already prepping for syndication or something. I don't know. We got yeah. It's really exciting. We have like an amazing lineup for this upcoming week. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of everything we've talked about over the last month in here. So this thing is going to cover everything from Ember CLI deploy, which we love and we use all the time, and then Ember engines, which we talked about recently. Dan Gebhardt's going to present that, so that's going to be great. And then next is Fastboot.
Yeah, Fastboot's going to be awesome. It's by Tom Dale. I think he'll just have been, maybe he's still there, but he just did a talk out in Cluj, Romania. Our friend Taylor Mock is out there and actually went to that conference. Apparently it was only €10 for the ticket. That sounds
right.
Like an amazing conference.
You really get a lot out of your conference budget in Romania.
Yeah, seriously. So that was really cool. So anyways, he's going to be presenting. I'm hoping he gives a similar talk so that we can kind of get a little bit more info in the Fastboot area. But that'll be really awesome. And then, and obviously that's Tom Dale, so talks are going to be pretty cool. And then Ember Electron, Felix Riesberg from Microsoft, which is going to be really cool. I'm actually really interested in Ember Electron just because I think that it kind of fills a need.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I think Electron's really going to help with this problem we've had for like a long time, where like cross-platform apps tend to look terrible.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, like installing what is it, X server or something for Mac, and then having like, you know, that kind of this crappy mix of a Linux and Mac GUI is just terrible.
Yeah, non-Retina. Yeah.
So I'm really just hoping that like Electron, like, you know, every app I've seen written in that style, like Node WebKit or, you know, or Electron, they look amazing. Like, you know, Popcorn Time was Node WebKit. I know I've seen, I can't remember what it was. The League of Legends, maybe loader was also Node WebKit.
Yeah, that sounds legit.
So yeah, there's a lot of applications I've seen that they look nice. They look really native, and you don't sacrifice a lot for getting, you know, a completely cross-platform offline app. So
yeah, it's gonna be really cool. I'm super excited about that talk. And then finally, a friend of the show, Katie Gengler, is going to present on Ember Try. I think this might be her like third time being featured on Global Ember Meetup, and I'm really excited to see all the work that's been done there in Ember Try. We've talked recently. I think she just added npm support and took the
preliminary fast boot stuff.
and then took the first initiatives towards the fast boot support. So it's gonna be really cool to see all the progress made there. So definitely tune in. That's going to be next Saturday, the 27th of February at noon.
Eastern time, right?
Yes, Eastern time.
So we mentioned that, you know, there's been a couple little TIL kind of blog posts, really small micro blog posts. And this was one of them we saw. It was by Romina Vargas at Dockyard. And it's about defaults in Ember. So specifically Ember data. So this is, you know, when you pass a default value to a property or to an adder in Ember data. So I've only ever done, you know, just a plain like false, true, maybe a string or something.
Yeah, and Booleans work as you'd expect. There's like support for those, so they actually do the right thing. It's specifically around objects and arrays that.
Right now, objects are weird. That was something we only learned about when we did live coding at some point, and somebody recommended this. You can actually say that the type is object, and it will serialize to JSON to the server. Or if you give it a transform, it will, you get a hook where you can basically turn it into what the server needs and whatever type that is. But in the case of specifically in default value, I've only ever given a string or true, false, something like that. But you can apparently also give it a function, which allows you to do some like, you know, maybe you want the default value to change over time, or you need it to base it off of other properties that are already set on the model. So this is the hook you would use that. And this example was basically how to get around some problem with default value.
Yeah. So if you set an object in a default value, just like default value : object, the first time you do it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I got it. And then when you go to reference it in another
when you go to create another record, it's the same thing.
So yeah, when you go to create a record, you'll get the default object. But then if you create another record of the same type, that object from the first, like in this case, it's person in the example she gives, it already has it because of some inheritance stuff. And she shows how that's actually kind of a behavior of JavaScript, and she gives an example in a Pojo of it behaving the exact same way. So it's not really a problem with Ember so much as just an issue with how this behavior works in JavaScript. And the way to get around it is just to give the adder a default value function and just return an object there. And that way, when it gives you a default value, it'll give you a brand new object. So that was pretty cool. So definitely a blog post worth your time. This was a little bit more in depth than the Bullet Arity one, but it's the same kind of principle. It's like, let me show you one concept, and here's some insight into some problem that you might experience. And I think that format is like really, really powerful. So this is definitely worth your time. I always love the stuff that Dockyard puts out.
Yeah, I was thinking that this blog post probably came out of like 5 hours of frustration of not knowing why a specific behavior was happening, and then finally going like, I don't want anybody to suffer this again.
Yeah, I've seen blog posts like that. I've written blog posts like that. That's definitely a severe motivator when you just pull your hair out, and then I'm gonna write a blog post so that no one has to deal with it again.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So check it out.
Thanks for listening to Ember Weekend. If you'd like to follow along, visit us at emberweekend.com.
Or you can find us at Ember Weekend, all one word, on Twitter, or subscribe via RSS.
I'm Chase McCarthy.
And I'm Jonathan Jackson.
And we'll see you next weekend.